Recap, rewind, and remember. The full moon hung like a glowing lantern in the dark velvet sky, casting its pale light over Grandpa's backyard. The evening air was cool and crisp, filled with the scent of freshly mowed grass and the distant hum of crickets. The old wooden table, familiar with years of family dinners, was set beneath the large oak tree that had seen countless generations gather. Tonight, it was surrounded by a group of cousins, each one eagerly awaiting dinner and the inevitable stories that Grandpa always had up his sleeve. "All right, everyone, sit tight," Grandpa said, his voice rich with warmth. "The food will be ready in just a minute. But while we wait, let's talk about this past year. I want to hear what each of you learned, and of course, I want to hear some funny stories." The cousins, all eagerly gathered around the table, looked at each other, grinning. It was a tradition to reflect on the year's highlights and lowlights while sitting under the stars. "I'll start," Emma, the youngest at 9, said with a grin. Her bright red curls bounced as she practically jumped in her seat. "Remember last summer when I tried to ride my bike without training wheels for the first time?" Everyone nodded, and Grandpa raised an eyebrow. "I remember that day. You looked like a flying squirrel, all wobbly and excited." Emma's cheeks turned pink, but she laughed. "Well, I was super proud of myself, but then you fell straight into a puddle," Jack interrupted, laughing. "You were covered head to toe in mud." "I didn't fall," Emma protested. I had to test the puddle to see if it was deep enough. Turns out it was." She giggled, clearly not embarrassed by the incident at all. "But you know what? I learned that it's okay to fall. And it's okay to laugh when you do. You just get up and keep going." Grandpa smiled, his face full of pride. "That's right, Emma. Life will throw you some puddles, but it's all part of the adventure. And sometimes, the best part is how you handle the fall. Keep laughing and keep trying." Okay, I'll go next," Jack, the oldest cousin at 15, said, leaning forward in his chair with his usual dramatic flair. He loved being the center of attention. "So, this year, I decided to build a treehouse in the big oak tree over there." He pointed to the towering tree just beyond the table. "I had everything planned out. The materials, the design, everything. But, I might have forgotten one thing." Everyone leaned in, waiting for the punchline. "I didn't check if the tree was actually strong enough for a treehouse," Jack continued, his voice full of mock horror. "So I started building, and then, well, the whole thing came crashing down the minute I stepped inside." Emma gasped. "No way. You really built a whole treehouse and it fell?" "Yup," Jack said, trying to sound casual. "I thought I could do it myself, but it turns out I needed to ask for some help, like from Grandpa or Dad." Grandpa nodded sagely. "What did you learn from that, Jack?" "I learned that sometimes, no matter how much you plan, things don't go as expected," Jack said with a grin. "And I learned that it's okay to ask for help. I should have asked before I ended up in a pile of sticks." "Well, you'll certainly never forget that lesson," Grandpa said, chuckling. "I've had my own share of great ideas that didn't quite work out. The key is not to get discouraged." Lily, the quiet one at 12, was next. She had always been more introspective, and when she spoke, everyone listened. "So, I joined the school band this year. I wanted to play the saxophone, but I was really nervous. I thought I'd embarrass myself in front of the whole school during the concert." Grandpa raised an eyebrow. "And did you embarrass yourself?" Lily smiled shyly. "Not exactly. But at first, I was terrible. I couldn't play a single note without sounding like a sick goose. But then, over time, I started practicing more, and by the end of the year, I actually played a solo during the spring concert." "That's incredible," Emma exclaimed. "You went from a goose to a superstar." "Yeah, well, it wasn't easy," Lily admitted. "But I learned that sometimes, you have to stick with things even when they're hard. You can't just give up after a few bad notes." Grandpa's eyes twinkled as he nodded. "Exactly, Lily. Progress doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes, it takes hard work and a lot of patience. But when you finally get it right, it's worth every moment." "I think that's true for everything," said Sarah, the second oldest at 14. She had been listening quietly until now, and her thoughtful voice caught everyone's attention. Like when I try to train the dog. You know, we got this puppy last year, and at first, he was just wild. Everyone laughed, knowing how mischievous the new puppy had been. Seriously, Sarah continued. I was so frustrated because no matter what I tried, he'd chew up my shoes, chase the cat, and even knocked over the trash cans. I thought, what's the point? But then I realized I wasn't being patient enough with him. So I started taking him to obedience classes, and slowly, he started listening. And now, he's actually pretty well behaved. It just took time. That's a big lesson, Sarah, Grandpa said. Training an animal, or a person, requires patience and consistency. It's not about being perfect right away, but about staying committed and learning as you go. The cousins were all nodding, reflecting on the lessons they'd shared. The moon above them seemed to shine a little brighter, as though it was joining in on the conversation. Grandpa cleared his throat, ready to add his thoughts. You know, he said, looking around at each of them, life is full of little lessons like the ones you've just shared. Sometimes, we think we need to achieve big things to make a difference, but it's the small moments, the mistakes, the learning experiences that matter the most. Think about all the times you fell and got back up. Think about all the times you tried something new, even when you weren't sure it would work out. Those moments are the ones that build character. Those are the moments that shape who you become. But how do you know when you're doing it right? Jack asked, his brow furrowed. Like, how do you know you're learning the right lessons? Grandpa chuckled softly. Well, Jack, there's no perfect answer to that. You'll make mistakes along the way. But the key is to keep your eyes open and your heart open. Pay attention to how you feel after each experience. Are you growing? Are you becoming kinder, more patient, more understanding? Those are the signs that you're on the right track. Sarah raised her hand playfully. Wait, Grandpa, are you saying we should enjoy the mistakes too? Like, the mess-ups? Grandpa smiled. Exactly. The mess-ups are part of the process. It's like cooking. Sometimes, a dish doesn't turn out the way you imagined. But that doesn't mean you throw the whole meal away. You learn from it, adjust, and try again. Enjoy the mess-ups, because that's where the most learning happens. Lily grinned. So, the mess-ups are part of the recipe? Precisely, Grandpa said. The most beautiful parts of life are found in the imperfections. The laughter after a mistake, the lessons learned in failure, the way you grow stronger and wiser as you go. There was a long pause as everyone took in Grandpa's words. The moonlight seemed to wrap around them like a blanket, and the warmth of the moment settled in their hearts. Grandpa, Emma said, her voice soft, I think you've taught us something really important tonight. Grandpa looked at her, his eyes twinkling with pride. I think I've taught you something you already knew. You just needed to be reminded. Life isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about making the most of the time you have, and about enjoying the journey, mess-ups and all. Jack stood up and stretched, a grin spreading across his face. Well then, let's enjoy some pie. No mistakes in that, right? Everyone laughed as Grandpa stood in motion toward the kitchen. The cousins all got up, eager to share a piece of Grandma's famous apple pie. They walked together, their hearts light, their spirits lifted, and their minds filled with the lessons of the night. The full moon still hung above, casting its glow on the backyard, where family, laughter, and love had always thrived. The night was far from over, and with it, a new chapter of memories was being written, one bite of pie at a time.